Guys, hope we're good. Thanks for tuning in. This episode is packed, so grab a pen and notepad. Hope you're keeping safe and well. I've got NitroFit's Chris Oven on this episode, and it's Series 1, Episode 1 of the new Slimming World series. So this is going to be good. Get tuned in and enjoy. Welcome to the Glasgow PT Podcast YouTube channel. Today, the much highly anticipated, even if it's just me anticipating it, Slimming World series is here. So Season 1, Series 1, Episode 1. We are tackling Slimming World in this full series. It's going to be a 5-part series, and we're going to address the UK's biggest weight loss organisation. And I'm going to bring in some of the big guns from Glasgow and around in Scotland to help talk about it, because it's a big thing that we've had with current clients, previous clients, and there's still people signing up to their service. We want to take a wee objective look at it, because obviously they get a fair share of bashing in the news and publicly and from really good coaches. And I have done it myself, and so is today's guest as well. But I just feel that it's going in circles. I think it's fallen on deaf ears. I don't think anybody's learning from it, because we still get the consultation forms that say, what did you do previously? Slimming World, has it worked? Nope. So I think it's worth addressing this, and I'm going to dedicate a full series to it. So today we have someone who still deals with, I was going to say surviving Slimming World. This is going to be the name of it, but it sounds like surviving R. Kelly and that's just a bit too deep. So it's Chris Oven.
How you doing, buddy? Glad
Chris,
to be on.
Good to have
Glad
you,
to
mate.
be back, mate. I've been waiting years for this now.
Patiently for the invite. So, Chris, most people will know if they follow me, they'll follow you. They'll know who you are, mate. But give us the short version of who you are, what you're doing just now, and then we'll get cracking.
Pretty much what you're doing, mate. I've got my own gym over in Dunfermline. I'm from Glasgow, obviously, where everybody knows you and I met in a big commercial gym. From there, that's when I moved to the other side of the Scotland and created NitroFit, which was a boot camp to begin with. And then now we've got a gym just like yourself. So Slimming World for me is like, I'm not even exaggerating this, about 75% of my current members have all tried Slimming World, and that is no exaggeration of like stats.
Yep.
So
that's
what I'm doing now. I've got my own gym, and it is female based only gym. That's the demographic, and Slimming World's high on the X things that I've tried before.
Yeah. No, mate, I think probably you more so than me. Your service, NitroFit, has probably got a lot more ex-Slimming World members than I have, and I've got a lot. Like I said to you before the show, mate, like every time when you send a consultation form to a client and they say, what have you done previously? And it says Slimming World, you kind of know what's going to come for it. You kind of know the next answers and everything else. And it's so easy for us to sit here and slate them, and even slating them to your clients kind of doesn't really get anywhere, because, well, the client's here now focusing on you and their next journey, so there's no point in dwelling on the past. Don't get me wrong, we are brushing and sweeping up the flare for the mess that Slimming World have made on their eating habits, lifestyle choices. But again, that's something that we're going to address as this series goes on, and this is why I've got you on, mate, because I think to start the series off well, you deal with a lot more than me, and I think it will just add double the value, mate. So appreciate you coming on.
Brilliant.
First question we're going to dive into, mate, and we're going to look at the positive and the negatives, because it would be all right for us just to sit here and just slate them and talk about the negatives that people have told us. But what I wanted, just for full transparency, for those who don't follow me on Instagram, I put up a question. I put up a post just saying, if you've ever used Slimming World, give me a message.
Yep.
So then I spoke to those people privately and said, right, here's 5 questions. Can you fill out these questions, answer honestly, and give as much detail as possible? Now, the questions you'll start to see as the series goes on. I'm not going to give you any spoiler alerts. I'll wait for you to see the next episode. But today's question and the title of the podcast and show is, what did you learn from your Slimming World experience? So you'll see from that question there that I'm not pushing an agenda here. I'm literally just asking the users, what did you learn? So I think we're all entitled to ask that. It's like if you speak about any sort of service, if you say, what did you learn from that experience? It's a perfectly legitimate, honest question. So 50 people replied. On top of that, Chris obviously asked his team a couple of days leading up to the podcast as well, and sent me a ton of stuff. So what I did was just take the popular answers Again, I didn't cherry pick the answers that suit our agenda today or for the rest of the series. I actually just took the positive and the negatives so that we can discuss it today and you guys can relate to it because if you've been through it, or you can know what's to come if you're about to sign up. So, mate, let's start off with, well, first of all, before we go into it, the reason I asked that question, mate, is because as coaches, we're big now on like helping our clients learn and educate them and develop them. So that is the reason I asked this question, because us as coaches, we want to give people the tools and tell them why they're doing stuff, but also give them the knowledge behind it, mate. I think that's a big thing now.
Mate, important, massively important. So I've went out my way never to really say negative stuff about any of the sort of different things in the fitness industry, because I think it just looks bad on ourselves when really we should be flipping everything on its head and try to show them the right way to do it educational wise. So for me, what I've took for Slimming World for my current members and what they say about it is it's all very skill related, which I think is bad for people's mindsets.
Mhm.
That's what I will say. I think when people are kind of standing on scales in front of another 25 people, just hoping that they've lost a pound,
Yep.
is maybe not the right way to go about it.
Mhm.
In the sense of it's not good for mental health when all you're concerned about is weight loss, and then you step on a scale and you've maybe not lost any weight,
Yep.
and you go home, and then self-sabotage kicks in.
Yep. So basically, there's no knowledge or education needed to stand on a piece of metal, that's their main criteria for success.
Success.
Or what's the opposite of success?
Failure.
I don't really know that word. Do you?
Nah, mate. Learning that. What I
so
will say, mate, sorry, is
go, mate.
just what you said there, it sparks up in my brain there. It's before, again, we're not slagging Slim World people either. I don't know what kind of qualifications these people have either.
Good point.
So what does it take to become a Slimming World instructor or a coach? Do you know what I mean? Have they got a level 2? Have they got a level 3? Which for anybody that doesn't know, that's a qualification you need to be a coach or a personal trainer of some sort. I guess it's only nutrition, but where did they get their education from? It's just a Slimming World certificate. Do you know?
The one thing I do know is they basically headhunt what they call the biggest losers.
Right, okay.
So if you've lost a ton of weight in the past, they then want you to become a market or a rep for their brand because you're a walking advert for them. And the only reason I know that, it was actually yesterday someone replied and said to me, I could actually add some value to that. My ex actually did it. She lost 20, I think she lost 29 pounds or something like that she lost. And then they actually said to her, can you go to these different cities and be a rep for us and talk about it and basically sell it so that we can get more customers.
Yeah.
So I do know that you can be a previous big loser and they'll ask you to be a rep and you'll ask you to be there. In terms of qualifications, not that I'm aware of, mate, as far as I know, and I've never been to these clubs, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as I know, when you show up to these things, typically the people are very, very similar to you in a sense of they're on their own weight loss journey, if you get what I'm saying. So as far as I know, no, mate, I don't know the exact answer, but I've never heard of a Slimming World Level 2 or a Slimming World PT. Same. So, mate, I've never actually looked at it like that. I've never actually questioned if they're actually qualified or not, so that's a very good point. So, yeah, mate, let's talk about the first positive then. So I took the popular recurring stuff that people said. So the first thing somebody said as a positive was going to a class and having rules gave me something to follow. So
structure of some sort.
So they preferred structure. So if you're going from not eating or just eating willy-nilly, grabbing food from shops and takeaways, what Slimming World provided for that person was structure. Now, on the flip side of that, not really a negative, but she says that she actually preferred this because the sort of place she was in. But basically, she was allowed only one B choice. B choice it's called. So from the B section. So in this case, it was like bread. She was allowed as much bread as she wanted, as much potatoes as she wanted. So she could pick that and then just have as much of it as she wants. That was a positive that this client felt. So structure and that they could have as much bread as they want because they love bread.
Okay.
Right? I know that they call stuff sins and stuff, but we'll come to that at a later time. What do you think of that positive, mate? Do you think that is genuinely, could we tick that off the list and say that that's a positive that they gone to that class, gave them a structure?
I think structure / awareness is what it done for them. Mm-hmm. It made them aware of types of food they were eating, even if it wasn't the correct types of food for that individual person. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. So that instead of just eating, I'll just eat this, I'll just eat that, they're actually going, what am I actually eating? So it's posing that wee question in their mind. At least they're saying, what am I eating?
Yep. Asking.
Maybe know why, but
Mhm.
they're getting some sort of awareness of what they're putting in their mouth. So it's probably a tiny wee positive step in the right direction for
Right.
me.
Yep, I agree, mate. I agree.
Yep.
We'll stick to the positives because what I don't want is to cross over. We'll get to the negatives, so stay tuned for that because that's when it could get a bit saucy. So this person says here, 8 years on Slimming World helped me with portion control. So I think similar to what Chris was saying there. I learned what a plate of food should be made up of, so carbs, proteins and veg. I think this person's just now saying that we are new knowledge. They definitely don't tell you carbs, protein,
No.
and they don't tell you macros, macronutrients. So yeah, that's a separate one. So I learned what a plate of food should be made up of, essentially, because if you have category B where they can have as much potatoes as they want, category A could be a meat source, category C can be veg and whatever else. So in terms of a positive, they learned what a plate of food should look like. Again, just echoing what Chris says there, versus what? Versus
That's what I was
long
going
tray of
to say.
chicken fried rice,
Yep.
portion of chips, crackers.
Yep.
So yeah, you could say it's a positive if that person felt that. But she said at the very start of that as well, 8 years on Slimming World. Now, again, this is why we're doing this series, because I mentioned it in my story the other day. 8 years, and this person happily replied to my story and gave me their honest opinion on it. And that person actually went on to slate it massively. And what worries me is that person spent 8 years doing that.
Yeah.
8 years.
8 years on something called Slimming World.
Yep.
So in our fitness world, 8 years we probably wouldn't have clients for 8 years first of all.
No.
But if we did, it's probably because they just enjoy training with you in some way. And through that journey of 8 years, there's probably been a fat loss journey at the beginning, and then some sort of body transformation in terms of adding muscle in some places,
Yep.
if that's what the client desires. So if me and you were to take somebody for 8 years, they would say they come into us, in their words, they felt overweight and they wanted to tone up, if you want to call it that, that's what they call it. The changes that we would make to somebody in 8 years without sounding big-headed would be massive, mate. You wouldn't, but they don't have to come back to us that long. That's the difference. But if they did, the change would be from fat loss to probably muscular development in some way.
Aye, no, spot on, mate. So I think that people, I mean, it was probably a quick 8 years, but it probably wasn't 8 years of 365 days. It was probably on and off and repeat the cycle. And I don't mean to make this person feel bad. Hopefully they watch it, because I'm now basically talking directly to you. But I think you writing that down, you'd probably realise that 8 years is a long time. If I paid for something for 8 years and I had very little return, or I had an up and down return, it was unpredictable, regardless if it's £1 a month, £1 a week, or £100 a week, that's a worrying sign. And that's why we're doing these podcasts here, so in the show. So yeah, mate, I think that's spot on. I think if you had paid for a coach for 8 years and you went back and forward all the time without actually progress, that's almost like worthy of taking somebody to court, I think.
I totally agree.
So yeah, learned what a plate of food should be look like. But again, that's in comparison to probably takeaways in a pizza box where a carton of chips at the side. It's not really. You've just probably went from using plates instead of takeaway boxes. So yeah, mate. The next one is learn to make fakeaway meals. The person learned to make fakeaway meals, so that was a positive. Mate, these are big. I do a lot of these. I don't call them fakeaways. It's just a munch. It's just somebody making. I'm just trying to encourage people to make homemade food. Now, that's where I think Slimming World, they do pretty well, in the sense of they've got, they're a massive company, so they've got recipe books. They've got all that stuff. So take away what they call foods, mate, and take away the categories that they put in foods. It encourages people to cook. I think we can agree that that's pretty decent.
That's it's a positive. What I would say is, I'm just going to be totally transparent here, as using the word fakeaway is just almost good marketing for Slimming World.
Brilliant. Yep.
It's just good marketing. It attracts people to look at it and think, oh, fakeaway, I love a takeaway, so let's try the fakeaway. It's almost giving them that wee thing in their head to say, oh, it's all right to do that, it's all right to do this. So I think the marketing is really good there by Slimming World. I think the people who buy into that fakeaway word are just getting hooked in. But I still think it's a good idea, to be fair, mate. Because
great marketing. It's a great marketing tool.
It's still a good, mate. Anybody who cooks their own home meals and knows what they're putting into them, you can't even say nothing about that.
Aye, that's it. And mate, one of the biggest goals we get for people who come to us, it's not just a case of, right, I want you in the squat rack, I want you deadlifting. For some people, it's a case of, right, on your lunch break, grab your work trainers and who you get. For some people, it's right. If someone's basically waking up and going to McDonald's for a breakfast, if they're grabbing a lunch for Greg's, and then at night they're phoning a takeaway. What we don't want to do is say, right, here's 1,850 calories, here's your carbs, fats, and proteins. Some people don't need that. So definitely I would say, if it's called a fakeaway or no, I think we need to get you cooking.
Yeah.
But then longer term, I've seen people firsthand have fakeaways every night. So what we've got to question there, mate, and when we go to people who are a bit more further down their journey, if you're 8 years in of a slimming journey, like you said,
Yes.
should you really be making fakeaways all the time? Should you not just use life and use your calories? Because fakeaways end up, and Cheryl will back this up, sometimes in the group, and my clients will know this, I've spoken to them about it, sometimes they have 7 days worth of fakeaways. And what you've got to question there is, how's the food source? How's the sodium levels?
Yep.
Is it just creating the fact that, when you have a fakeaway for some people, it's really typically higher sodium diet foods, let's be honest, curry sauce and stuff.
Absolutely.
So what does that then lead to? The likelihood of you having more sugary drinks like iron brew or chocolate after it.
Yep.
So again, guys, this is me talking about the people who are a wee bit ahead of always ordering takeaways. So these people need to realise that fakeaways, while they can help make you cook more, they definitely still aren't the long-term answer.
No, mate.
Do you know what I mean?
It is? You've just, when you were talking there, what I was trying to say the first time, you just nailed it there for me, mate. Using fakeaways 7 nights a week is just covering up the real issue.
Yep.
Why you were using takeaways in the first place. It's almost, it's a tiny wee step in the right direction, but if you're going to do that 365 days a year for the next 10 years, you're not really going to go far.
Yep.
So it's not a long-term solution.
Yep.
It's a once-a-week solution.
Yep.
Something to change the game a wee bit on a Saturday night when
Yep.
you feel, do you know what? Could order a Chinese, but going to make a nice meal that's borderline on a takeaway sense, but I've home cooked it and I know exactly what's in it.
Exactly. And it will have a lot less salt and all that, the bad oils and stuff that the takeaways have. Yeah, I totally agree with that, mate. I like today's Sunday dinner, big roast. I mean, I track it because I know I don't really need to put it into my fitness pal.
You don't.
Big Sunday dinner, a fakeaway on a Wednesday, or just
you just said it.
or just a higher calorie meal. Do you know what I mean? But like, have a light breakfast, light lunch, and if you're finishing work early on a Wednesday, bump your calories up because like I say, the food sources and the quality of the food gets questionable. And mate, if you have a Mars bar every day, you're going to get fed up with Mars bars. It's the same with curry sauce and all these fakeaway recipes.
Yep.
And eventually you end up back at square one and going, right, I'm actually fed up with all these fakeaways.
Yep.
You run out of food sources very quickly.
You don't learn nothing.
No, that's it. And like Chris says, you're masking the real issue that is, you need to learn about your calories. You need to learn that you don't have to cheat in your diet. You don't have to have fakeaways. Just balance your food and learn how to feel fuller for longer and stuff like that.
That's it, mate.
Spot on, right? So a wee bit at the bottom there was just Kickstarter, but you covered that, mate. You almost as if you read the iPad, your X-ray vision. That means
I can't even see.
I know it's too far away. So that's the kind of positives that I took for stuff relating to this first episode, mate. I mean, there's a whole host of stuff, but I'm trying to get it down to a point where we can manage it and people can get a bit of structure to this whole series as well. Because the main point of this question is education. What did you learn? So now we come into the negatives, which starts to open up a whole host of problems when it comes to the lack of education that the Slimming World are given. So negative here is, and to quote this person, who the hell can eat pasta for brekkie, lunch and dinner? Pasta is, quotes, free. So they say that pasta is completely free. So like I think they've upgraded their names since, I think they did quite a lot, but B choice. So basically what I can read from this is under the B section, it's your carbs. So it's potatoes, rice, pasta, and you can have as much of it as you like.
Right, mate.
So
sorry, on you go.
No, so this person's basically saying, how the hell can you have how can you have pasta for brekkie, lunch and dinner? How's that possible?
Mate, see, you were talking there, my heart rate was actually going up, and I'm not even joking, right? Because I was getting so annoyed at that, mate. Like, anybody watching this, right? You can't eat unlimited carbohydrates all day. You can't eat unlimited any foods all day long. Yep. But you just can't eat. You can't say that a carb's free and it doesn't need to be tracked. It doesn't make sense. Everything has to be tracked in a sense for a short period of time. Mm. To say something you can just eat pasta all day long, mate, that's just no. It doesn't make sense for the goal. Yep. Because if you're eating, say, for example, your calories were like 2,000 calories a day, and you've tracked your proteins and your fats, and then you decide you're going to have just unlimited pasta all day, your calories are probably going to end up, depending on how much you eat, obviously, but if you're eating 2 bowls of pasta a day, as on top of the rest of the stuff you're eating, you're probably going to be close to 3,000 calories.
Right. How are you going to feel?
Terrible, mate.
Bloated.
It doesn't. That's honestly, if anybody says anything about Slim World, that's the first thing that comes to my mind straight away. Is that just that whole pasta thing, mate?
Yeah.
In a nutritional sense, it doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
At all.
So that was the most common. I think people. One of the questions that I say further on is about that kind of stuff, but people just went straight in on that, and there's a whole host of them, mate. Like to a worrying degree, let's be honest. Like to the point where you got annoyed about it there.
I was holding back full Irving there.
Aye, no, that's fine. So the person actually said it was so confusing that they were allowed to do that. So that's the whole point in this episode. This episode is about educating people. So by telling people that you can eat as much of a carbohydrate that we typically overeat as it is, you know, we know how like satiating and stuff that all this good stuff is. It's the performance thing. It's the bloat, and I think actually the whole point of them saying that you can have that, because basically, right, not layman's terms here. Well, let's call it layman terms, right? Eat as much pasta as long as you cook it. Just stop eating as much shite. That's what they're trying to do. Stop phoning a takeaway. Have as much pasta and rice as you want. And the theory that I think Slim World have got is that by like, it's almost like they're trying to think that is you can only eat so much pasta and you'll fill yourself up.
Yeah, but I've seen.
Is that their thinking?
Yeah.
I'm trying to think like, why they do that.
Do you know why we can't understand it, mate? It's because it doesn't make any sense at all. We're the kind of people that we create long lasting changes in people's lives, nutrition, mindset, and everything. Slimming World don't. That's just the truth, right? They don't create, not as far as I'm aware anyway, because the people I bring in there, I'm not slagging it because I don't think bad about it. I'm telling you facts. The people that I know, and there's 75% of a big, massive membership that I have, it doesn't work for them.
Yep.
It doesn't create a long lasting, because it doesn't educate them. So if you don't educate somebody and all you're doing is putting them in scales every Saturday and they're starting to put weight on, how does that educate them? They don't understand why. They just keep looking at a wee book all the time and going, but it says here I can eat unlimited amounts of the B section, but I'm not losing any weight. When they're missing the whole point in the situation is, even the word weight loss isn't even the correct word for a fat loss goal, essentially, because the real goal is fat loss. Let's not cut about the bush here. The real goal is fat loss. If you're talking about weight loss, then you're talking about losing muscle mass and all that kind of stuff, which isn't beneficial for fat loss goals in the long term.
So how important is it, mate, to educate our clients when they're at the right stage of the difference between carbs, protein and fat? So Slimming World's agenda is that they don't get people to weight train, because they know that the people will weigh way heavier on the scales because of, you know, breaking down muscle fibers and retaining water and stuff like that. We could do a full podcast on that, mate. But how important is it for a client to understand the breakdown of different, like what food does, what's a carbohydrate, why it's important that we find moderation in all of them? Why is that so important, mate, versus what Slimming World do?
Right, so you touched on a point there in the journey, in the person's journey. Is it correct? The correct time? So I'm just speaking to my clients again, most of my clients don't get that straight away because they're not ready for it, like you said, mate. But there comes a point when they are ready for it, mate. We go with calories and protein first. Then when they hit that correctly and do it well, then we start to introduce the other ones and why they're important as well. So, of course, they're massively important, mate, for, like you say, performance. Getting up every day feeling revitalised and fresh and no sluggish and not bloated and actually feeling mentally positive as well. All those food sources make a massive difference to that kind of stuff. That's why it's important to me, mate. I don't know if you have a kind of spin-off different version of that, but
mate, I think it's very, very important for, like, for example, when you take a family. So if you take typically females will do Slimming World. So they have decided that they want to lose weight, and they have a partner, they have maybe a couple of kids, and they decide to go out for dinner, or they decide to go to the food shop. Now, she's probably going to centre her full shopping around the free foods, the carbohydrates, probably avoid the stuff that called sins, but we'll come to that in a minute. So for me there, that's a big, big problem, because she's going to create a divide in the family. I think not even, and this just baffles me, but not even knowing how much calories, or even a ballpark of calories that's suitable towards her weight loss journey. Because, mate, let's be honest, if you say to a client, throwing numbers out here, but if you say a female, 1,800 calories we're going to start you on, we're going to find how that is, we're going to monitor your pictures, measurements, and we're going to see if that's you losing some fat. If you give the female 1,800 calories, the male can be no far behind, 2,500.
Yep.
The kids are probably going to have far better foods available to them other than stodgy pasta and all the rest of it.
Yep.
So for me, I would, mate, absolutely spot on point, but I think that is the worry there, is telling people to have sections of each bits of food without a total number.
Yep.
Like, we don't want our clients tracking forever either, mate.
Nah.
We don't.
No
But there's a
chance.
big bit in the middle there where we need to get a wee bit knowledgeable on what's going on in our bodies. I mean, we all when we start tracking our food, we get a wee wake-up call and go, is that what's really in that?
That's what tracking's about, mate.
Exactly, mate. It's the wake-up call and you go, do you know what? I'm going to have that in moderation because that's just no worth it.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest thing for me, mate, is allowing foods without any total calorie amount in target. Because as soon as they stop getting weighed on a Tuesday night at the local Slimming World Club, what's next? Like, you have a section of foods to eat for. Like, that is why people are going back for 8 years in a row.
Yep.
That, for me, is the biggest thing that Slimming World have got wrong with them. There's sins, there's all this food stuff, absolutely is worse.
Yep.
But it's the scheme they've got of the cycle repeating itself.
Yep.
Because when you don't give somebody the tools, they're going to come back to you.
Of course.
To a point where you're a wee bit brainwashed. And I'm not being funny, Chris, but these people are in a very vulnerable position, mate.
Absolutely.
How many people do you speak to on the phone weekly, mate, privately, who literally open up to you, mate, and tell you how they really feel post Slimming World and in general with the fucking haze that's gone over the world right now? And that company are almost taking advantage of those people.
No, they are, mate, because we all know in this day and age, and probably for the last 20 years, that I deal with predominantly females again, that there is an issue with people's self-confidence and an issue with feeling vulnerable, mate. So any wee sort of sign that a company like a Slimming World would give out, they're going to try and latch onto that straight away. These vulnerable people, they're going to snatch onto the chance that Slimming World might change them. Now, we both know there's probably a couple of success stories for Slimming World, mate. Like, I don't know the accurate number. There probably is a couple of success stories, but that's probably people who are just disciplined and they eventually notice what they can do and don't do
Absolutely.
properly. Do you know what I mean? But I talk to people, mate, day in and day out about it all the time, and I'm still trying to claw back years and years of those bad habits for those people to try and turn their mindset the right way.
Yep.
But just to touch back on the point, mate, sorry for jumping back, with the kids thing that you said about the family. Kids notice this stuff, mate.
Mhm.
Kids watch their parents, right? See their parents are weighing themselves every morning. I can guarantee you, kids can see that.
Yep.
And that's going to have I guarantee it will have a long-term effect on the kids' mindset when they grow up. Because I've already seen it. I've seen it happening. Where kids start to weigh themselves all the time because mum does it. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Mum talks about weight all the time. When Sandra's around talking to them, they're always talking about Slimming World and weight loss and eating pasta. That runs down the family. So, sorry for jumping back.
No, mate, absolutely. We'll come to that as well, definitely. But just what you're saying about the scale there, mate, I made a decision to no weigh my clients at all.
Same.
I get their weight at the very, very start of their journey, just so that if I've not met them, it's online coaching or whatever, I can get a rough gauge between that, their height, their lifestyle, and their photos, measurements, that I can get a rough gauge of where we're at, and I can get a base point for the next steps. And I didn't just say, look, we don't weigh ourselves here at the Glasgow PT, that's my way or the highway. I gave an educational video on it to say, look, this is why we don't. Because, mate, every single time, like when you go to weigh yourself, typically it's a Tuesday night at your local Slimming World Club, so you've probably had 3 meals anyway, so that's another point. But you maybe lose 2, 3, 4 pounds, and you go, well, I should think so too. You know, I'm doing this every day. I've sacrificed my chippy on a Friday night. You know, I'm eating foods for this labels and all the rest of it. You know, there's some sins that I'm having. So my point is that you're never ever going to be happy. And yet when you don't budge on the scale, it's World War III. It's you kick the bucket, you phone a chippy, and it's the end of the world. So to me, it's a bit of an obvious one. It's like, look for a second. The gratification that you're going to get is a couple of pounds off on the scale, which we now know from good coaches telling us that it heavily dictates on if you've been for a pee. If you're bloated, if you're stressed, if you're on your time in the month. So why would we let something that's just so, the margin for error is so big, and then you step on a scale, which by the way could be moved to another part of the room and dictate and read something different? Why would you let that be the source of your happiness and the source of your outcome, whether it's to make it a success or a failure for the week? So people watching this, if you're weighing yourself every week, me and Chris get these people who come to us and we tell them we don't weigh ourselves here at NitroFit in the Glasgow PT. but we know you're probably still going to do it. Why? Because you're in the habit for 8 years of doing it. So it's about us pulling you away from that habit. So what I don't do is ask the client if they're weighing themselves. I don't get you to weigh yourself. So eventually, hopefully, the client goes, look, he's not even asking me for my weight. You know, I get clients from Slimming World and it comes to Wednesday and they go, oh, Chris, I weighed myself. And I'm like, here we go. We're 2 days into the new plan and they've weighed themselves.
Yep.
But I've got to understand and show a bit of empathy and go, look, we don't do that here. You need to stop that. Because we're now weight training. We're doing some exciting stuff.
Yep.
And it's going to give you a good measurement. So I took that decision not to weigh my clients ever. I do think there's some trainers out there who say that as well. And unfortunately, when their client loses weight, they actually put it up how much pounds they've lost.
Yeah.
Which, again, look, it can be a good marketing tool. It can be a good visual for people because all we're really doing is talking to our audience because that's unfortunately how they measure success.
Yep.
Is, oh, they dropped 20 pounds. Oh, I could be doing me dropping 20 pounds.
Yep.
How many times do you see it, mate, when somebody goes on their constellation form, what's your goals? To lose 2 stone.
Always.
And you go at them, what does 2 stone mean? Is 2 stone an image in your head? Is it a dress size? It's 2012 when I was before the weigh-in. I wore a size 12 dress. Right, so you want to be a size 12 then? Right, let's try and do that.
Yep.
Do you know what I mean? Let's get away from the scale because you might just find that you might hit size 12, but you might not get to the weight loss you wanted because it's all skewed.
Yep.
I know you get that a lot, mate. Like,
mate, see what you're saying there? See when they actually realise after about a month or two that their measurements are coming down and their dress size is coming down and they're not weighing themselves, that's when they start to see, do you know what? Chris is right.
Yep.
He's right. And then I've got people in my outfit who's been with me for a good part of 8-9 months. And I've got them now telling the new members, don't weigh yourself, don't do that, and don't worry about the scales. I've got members in my gym now telling the new members not to worry about that.
Yep.
It's in the group chat. If somebody writes up, oh, Chris, I weighed myself in the group chat, I just say, Laura, got a lassie called Laura. Laura just like a wee pit bull terrier sitting there. Listen, Sharon, you don't want to weigh yourself, darling. I've been here this long and that long. Here's my pictures. Look at me.
Yep.
Then Sharon's like, oh, do you know what? I'm going to fling the scales away now. They called it a scales amnesty. They were going to bring them in to us. We were going to keep them. It wasn't my idea, but it was the lassie Julie that said, just get a skills amnesty and we'll bring it to Chris. Sorry, mate, I'm going off on a tangent there. Get it all the time.
Yep.
And the best way to do it, mate, is keep reiterating to them that you understand why they're doing it.
Yep.
Because it's years of bad habits, but let's try and keep pushing towards the pictures and the dress size and see how you feel.
No, I mean, that's spot on. I love nothing more than the client, just as they click, you send them their photos before and after and they go, right, I get it now. And it does take a bit of time because we're trying to undo a habit that's took forever. Do you know what I mean? It's a bit
firefighting, mate. We're literally firefighting.
Big time. So if you're watching that and you're like that, try the picture thing. I mean, the pictures aren't going to go anywhere. It's your pictures. You can keep them. Between that, measurements, how you feel, don't dictate your happiness with a number on a scale because if you do, it's going to be a long, long road ahead.
Yep.
Cool, mate. The next point I want to talk about then is the big thing. When everybody thinks of Slimming World, when everybody thinks of the bad things about Slimming World, it's the sins.
Oh, God. So
from an education point of view, let's talk about the word sins then. What sort of message does that have to the outsider looking in and to the person involved?
Do you know what a sin is in human being terms? It's a religious term for something bad that you do. So straight away you're putting a...
No, but they use it with a Y, so it's like...
Oh, it's different, it doesn't count. I know, it sounds the same, but...
A Y instead of an I.
So they've done that on purpose, clearly, another marketing tool.
Yep.
It sounds terrible the way I'm saying it, but it's a marketing tool preying on the vulnerable, using the word sin, because it's looking at religion, right? But for the last 2,000 years, Christianity's been quite strong in the Western world, so when you say the word sin, I know what that means, you know what it means, the guy recording this know what it means, right? It means bad, mate. It means some sort of sin. Forgive me, Father, I have sinned, right? Yep. Sorry for saying that on camera, but that whole word was just a massive religious term, mate, that we're brainwashed to feel is bad. Mm-hmm. So when they say sins, it's definitely that, mate. It's to put that connotation in your brain that you're doing something that's naughty and you shouldn't be doing it.
Yep. So basically you get allocated a number of sins per day.
Yep.
Now, I don't know the full details, but I know
who forgives them?
No, the next day it's white, it's cleared.
Oh, is it? That's good.
So it's not as you don't need to go to the Vatican or anything like that to get your clean slate. But mate, it's one of those things. You sin on your diet, so that is a fucking massive alarm bell.
Yeah.
Instead, from an education point of view, what we could do is just call it food,
Yep.
and like I said, tying into the last point, tie it in with your calories. So if this person has 1,800 calories, the sins, which by the way, avocado used to fall under that because it had a high fat content.
Yep.
Which shows you even more.
Yep.
Aye. So instead of just have 1,800 calories, and if the sin is a Mars bar, understand that the person can fit that in no problem. If you've got 1,800 calories, you can fit 2 Mars bars in, no bother.
It's only 230 calories a Mars bar. Just there's other chocolates out there as well, by the way, guys.
So do you see what I mean? And that's where we end up back with Senga up here, who's been there for 8 years, who, when she has too many sins, game over. Because she knows when she goes to that Slimming World Club on a Tuesday night, because the sins of, instead of having she was only allowed 5 sins, she said 6.
How dare she?
How dare she? She's not going to fucking step on the sad step on Tuesday night because she's had too many sins. So that is the massive alarm bell with Slimming World when we think of that. This is something that I'm not even going to try and look at objectively.
No.
It's straight up the worst part of Slimming World because it creates really, really bad relationships with food.
100%, mate. We see that. That's what I've seen for the last year, 8 years in the job, is that relationship with food's terrible. So what I try and say to people is, are you making the right choices with food for your goal and for your body?
Mm-hmm.
So you could eat 1,800 calories of Mars bars every day essentially and still lose fat, but you're probably going to feel shite, aren't you?
Mm-hmm.
So that's why we say, look, if you want to be Mars bar, fling it in there. See if you're making the smarter choices to fuel your body, which is probably the right way we should say things, I think. That Mars bar's not going to make a difference to you in a negative way at all, and you've still got to enjoy your wee chocolatey fix
Your
that you
coffee or
probably have,
whatever.
and it's not a bad relationship with food at all because you go, do you know what? I'm not even going to have a Mars bar in the morning now.
Mm-hmm.
That's quite satisfied, my wee feeling to have a bit of food. And because I've no banned it, because mate, seeing you, we're wee guys, we come from Glasgow, right? Everybody will know about this. What do you want to do when you're 13, 14? Go and booze. Because you're not allowed to drink alcohol when you're that age. So you want to do it all the time because it's seen as bad. So when somebody tells you not to do something, human beings just go like that. I'm going to go and do that.
Aye, 100%.
Because it's like up here, do you know what I mean? It's the
You're not
forbidden
allowed.
fruit. So if you say to somebody, look, name me a chocolate for the next 6 weeks, all you're going to think about is chocolate, mate. And that's just a fact.
Yep.
So that's my opinion on it.
Aye, and that's the problem that ends up reoccurring every time because when they crave something and they've already used their sins for the day, and then they get punished, and it's the repeating cycle. And so, mate, from an education point of view, I think we can both agree that provides fucking absolutely none. It says, like you said, from a absolute fucking religious point of view, you have done the worst thing possible. Surely that's the worst thing in religion, isn't it? Sin. Apart from supporting the opposite. Down under, down at the bottom.
I only use religion, I didn't mean it in a religious sense, but because the Western world is, I don't want to say corrupted by it, but brainwashed by religious 2,000 years of it, sins is a word that we all know quite commonly.
Yep.
And that's why they've used it, I guarantee it.
Aye, I bet you. So yeah, that's the biggest thing that us as coaches are picking up from Slimming World clients, ex-Slimming World people, is I've sent out diet plans and food databases to clients, and they've actually come back and went, am I allowed cereal? Oh, that's fucking 7 sins. And I go, really? Like that, you're not allowed cereal? Like, for fuck's sake. Do you know what I mean? Because it's under some mad category. Which again, they're literally going, here, have all the pasta and bread you want, but you're not allowed cereal. See that wee Rice Krispies? You're not allowed them.
Rice Krispies.
Do you know what I mean? So that is probably the biggest problem that Slimming World poses. And I think that's what us as coaches are literally picking up the pieces for. And we constantly hit home the fact that 8 years of not being allowed cereal, and then giving someone cereal, like Chris says, we understand that we're almost asking you to do something that you've been trained not to do. And instead, this is why we're doing this series, because I don't feel that as coaches collectively, we're not competing with Slimming World's message, mate. We're not getting it out there enough.
Nah, we're not. What most coaches will do is just slag it.
Yep.
So that's what I was going to say to you, mate. Firstly, well done for actually taking the time to put this series together to help people, because not a lot of people want to do that. And like, they would see it as wasting time, whereas I don't. I think you've done a good thing there. We, as a fitness community, need to get the message out there there's no point in us sitting here saying we're not going to slag Slimming World. We're not going to slag it, but we're going to tell the truth about it, mate.
100%.
And it's facts. It's not like we're just sitting making stuff up here. We're telling the truth from a perspective of facts of hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of women. I mean, we can only deal with so many. It would be thousands if we could scale that bigger.
100%.
They'd be everywhere, but we can only deal with what we've got. So we're dealing with facts here, and the facts are, so far, in my understanding, is Slimming World for the long term does not work for people. It just doesn't work, mate, and that's it. So we need to get that message out for people watching, and I'll share this till the sun comes up, mate, so that as many people as possible can see it, because it's going to make people's lives better, mate, in the long term. Because these women have been doing this, like you say, for 8 years, mate. That's a long time to be suffering in and out for 8 years. That's a long time in your mental health to be feeling good for a couple of weeks, bad for a couple of weeks, good for a couple of weeks, bad for a couple of weeks. And I don't want to use good and bad, but that's how they're feeling. So how long can that go on?
Yep. No, I mean, I totally agree with you. And I think 8 years, no matter where you're at in your life, if whether you're 18, whether you're 22, going into 30, like you're probably in the peak of your life where you should be. It looks like you're prioritising your health because you're going to something that your auntie lost 12 pounds then, but she's also put 14 pounds back on because of the lack of education. So I totally agree, mate. I think it was just we need to pull together and we need to get this message stronger because, like you say, if I come to you in a very vulnerable position, typically coaches are a lot more intimidating than Slimming World. That's why they tend to go with the Slimming World angle, because it's less intimidating. They paint the picture of people like you who are going and just stepping on a scale. So as a coach, if I want you to flip this on its heat here, right? The next time a client comes to you and says, "Oh, I used to do Slimming World, man, but I kept piling the weight back on." If you turn around and say to them, "Okay, no, Slimming World's shite, man. They do this, they call it that, they do this." Bear in mind that client isn't thinking about that just now. No. They're thinking, "How can you help me? I'm already intimidated standing here on the gym floor with you. I'm already intimidated being in this room with you, but if it's a consultation room, whatever it is, remove that. You can refer them to this full series where we're talking about it and covering it for you. Just be like, look, send it, watch episode 1 with Chris and Chris. That will cover it and it will hopefully educate you. But understand that just slating it isn't enough. Now, why don't you instead, with your group of clients, ask them privately in the group or do a video that goes, guys, look, what's the long-term habits that you feel you can't shake? Ask a question like that. Ask a world-class question instead of just, "Oh, Slimming World's shite. Stop standing on the scales. That's for Slimming World you're doing that." Flip it on its head, because what we're doing is not working. No. Do you know what I mean?
Any time somebody comes to you for help, the only thing you said there, mate, the only thing they're ever thinking is, how can this guy help me? Know how shite Slimming World is, or how shite your last PT was, or how shite something else was. The only thing they're really thinking is, how can you help them? So you need to turn that, like Chris said, on its head and make sure that you're doing everything for that person to make sure it happens for them. The habits, they can take ages to change, mate.
Yep.
They can take ages. I've still got, even that same lassie who I was mentioning earlier, she won't mind me saying it because we talk about it all the time, quite openly. She sometimes falls into wee bad weeks. And I say bad weeks where she's not at her best. And she goes back into the wee habits because her mindset's a wee bit, maybe low.
Yep.
Maybe it is the time when she's just feeling a wee bit rubbish and she'll fall into the wee habits again. "Oh, Chris, I've done this, or I've stepped on the scales again." And I'm like, it doesn't matter. Who cares? My rule is, mate, if you have a day that you find wasn't a good day for you, just have a better day the next day. How can we do that? Well, first of all, tell me how your day was bad in your opinion, and then we'll go and put a wee plan together for the next day.
Yep.
Just don't have 2 bad days. Now, that's easy said, but at least if you're conscious about it, you won't go, "I've had a bad Monday, so I'll have a bad week. Do you know what? I'll have a bad month." 12 years later. You know what I mean?
Aye. No, mate, definitely. I think it's worth noting when it comes to scale weight, for very advanced people, it could be a good tool, especially for males looking to get bigger, especially females looking to build muscle. It could be a very good tool, but it has to be under really good supervision. It has to probably be from advanced people. Adherence to training and nutrition has to be spot on, because someone stepping on a scale who can't track properly, doesn't adhere to their training or diet, and yet they step on a scale. Remember, the scale is going to be a measurement of progress, a unit of measurement based on all these factors being right. But typically the people coming for Slimming World or in Slimming World, they don't adhere to a proper nutrition, a proper calorie amount. So how the fuck can a scale be accurate if you don't adhere to the calorie amount? Makes no sense. No. So it's worth noting that.
Do you know what some of them do as well? again, some of my clients have told me this, say they're weighing, right, was like 7 o'clock at night on the Slimming World. They would starve themselves all day, dehydrate themselves all day to get a better number on the scale.
Mental.
And then just go and eat hundreds of shite again at night time.
Mental.
So it all became
a game.
On that Tuesday night, they just had to get as many pounds off as they could. So they, like I say, they wouldn't eat, they wouldn't drink. You know what I mean? They would just do all they could to make sure that that one metric looked in their eyes what would look good to everybody else standing there. And then they're all clapping, hey, well done, Sandra.
Aye.
It's like, fucking hell, man, that's like backwards education.
That's the opposite, aye. And if it's trying to sound derogative or whatever, people that typically are coaching these people are running about the same weight. So I'm not being funny, but anybody who's giving you nutrition and training advice should have either walked the walk or is currently walking the walk, in my opinion. I think it's worth noting.
I mean, it's got to be done ethically as well. It's like they're teaching something that they don't fully understand themselves. These coaches, they're teaching something that they don't get. Do you know what I mean? They're just getting a book off some guy who created Slimming World or some woman and basically saying, just follow this book, A, B, C, and D, and you'll be fine. With no... Everybody in the nutritional world knows, mate, that Slimming World can't back its stuff up. There's no evidence for it, mate. There's no scientific evidence at all for it. In a sense, like, eating pasta all day is going to help you with your fat loss goal. Do you know what I mean? So, I think ethically, mate, it's not monitored in any way at all, is it? There's no governing body to say that's passable.
Ethically calling something a sin is your main... When you think of Slimming World, we think sins, and that's the most unethical thing we can talk about. So that is the worry. That is the biggest thing. It's very unethical. And like you say, you can argue that to the cows come home, but prove it. You know, we're just looking at facts, mate. It's as simple as that. So, mate, what I ask you before we wrap it up then is, look in camera 2 again, and just let's talk directly to the people who are currently doing Slimming World. You know, they're probably watching this video because of this, or they're thinking of getting back on Slimming World. What would you say to them to demand more for themselves, to demand education, to demand accountability from a coach, to demand that the hard efforts they put in and the sacrifices actually yield them results? So what would you say to those people that are so stuck in Slimming World that they deserve more? What advice would you give me?
Right, first of all, take a look back at how long you've been doing this for, right? So, like somebody said earlier, they've done it for 8 years. If you're not making change in 8 years, why are you still doing it? It clearly doesn't work, right? So, I've got a saying about people in my night fit, and when they come to me and they're like, oh no, I date this way, and I'm like, listen, I'm not being funny, right? You've came and told me that you feel massively overweight. You've came and told me you feel shitty all the time. You came and told me you've done this for 10 years. How about you listen to me now? Because listening to you doesn't work right now. And I'm going to give you the tools so that going along in the future that you can listen to you more, because listening to yourself got you into this situation with some bad help outside of that. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I might sound a bit harsh, but they think about it, mate. I've never had a bad reaction to it because they're like, no, you're right. I'm like, you've been doing that for 10 years. You've been listening to yourself. That doesn't work for you right now. So you need to listen to us because we've got your interest at heart and we've got the tools and the environment to create that change so that you don't need me. I don't want you to need me in a year's time. I always say that on the phone. I says, look, the foot's sounding cheeky here. After like 90 days or 12 months, whatever you need, depending on how long you've been doing this for, I don't want to see you again. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. And they just start laughing because I'm being serious about it, mate. I want to give them the tools to say, see you later. You don't need me now. Does that make sense? So if you are in Slimming World and you're watching this, ask yourself, are you the right person and are they the right people to be listening after all this time? And if the answer's no, then you need to get the fuck. That's it. And seek some real help. That probably sounds a bit direct, mate, but I think
no, that's it. That's what I wanted, mate.
The right message.
I think that's what people need. I think they need that kick up the arse, and hopefully people watching this can come back to us in 2-3 weeks and go, thanks for that, because we needed it.
Yeah.
Because you get lost in it all, mate. It's like hating.
Yeah.
You know, you go to the boys' brigade when you're younger, and you think you're in the FBI. Like, so you get lost in the moment, and you get lost in the biggest problem I think that doesn't get discussed enough, right, is Slimming World. Now, it is cheaper, a lot cheaper than hiring a coach, for good reason, because you don't get anywhere near the level of service. But I think there's a big gap, mate, between Slimming World and hiring a coach.
Yep.
I think there's a gap in there because you look at the typical clientele from Slimming World, it's quite different from your coaches.
Yep.
I think it is,
Yeah.
until they eventually branch into there and demand more for themselves and say, do you know what, I'm fed up for this, 8 years on the results. That guy's getting results, I want to go there. But I think there's a big gap there where there's an intimidation factor, I think, with coaches. I think there's a belief issue. I think people look at coaches and go, I could never do that thing with the bar on my back. I could never do it in that, that machine that looks like a fucking spaceship.
Aye.
And I think there's a big gap there that people need to go, look, like Chris says, whatever you're doing right now isn't working for you. So the Einstein thing, insanity.
Exact same.
So you need to take that step. What's the worst thing that can happen? You go back to your Slimming World and you'll make Tuesday night if you don't like the way the coach works. But look for a coach that is genuine, is saying the stuff that you like listening to. You know, if you're listening to this podcast or you're listening to other fitness podcasts and you go, that person's down to earth, they talk about clients' real struggles and real problems, take that step and take the leap based on Chris's advice and based on me telling you that your consistency of going to those classes every Tuesday night is holding you back. So you need better help. You need to demand more from yourself. You might need to spend a bit more money. Shock. Guess what? It's either that or your BMI is going to be through the roof, and any health problems that you have, the NHS will even turn you away because they're not even dealing with you. So I think that we need to address that, mate, as well. Would you agree? Like, I think there's certain people who come on the phone. There's people who are fed up with Slimming World and are ready to, they're like, I demand more from myself because it's no good enough. But I also think there's a lot of them, mate, that, I don't mean to be cheeky, but they sit in a herd like zebras.
Yep.
And then eventually one wee zebra wanders off. Doesn't get killed with a lion, right? But he wanders off and then turns into a wildebeest, mate, and then he's off.
Aye.
Do you know what I mean?
No, I totally agree, mate. I think, like you say, it's that wee pack mentality in it.
Mm-hmm.
And it probably feels like a wee nice community for them as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they all feel like when they don't lose weight, that they're the other person who isn't losing weight's there for them. And then they'll comfort each other. And they'll probably go away and eat a lot of shite together as well and make themselves feel better in that time. But that doesn't work long term because you're just going to continuously be somewhat unhappy with yourself until the end of time. And we only get one life, and that sounds pure miserable, but you need to look after yourself properly because it does make a massive difference to you. Mate, looking after yourself should be the number one thing.
Yep.
I say that to my guys as well. I say treat yourself like you treat your daughter. Treat yourself like you treat your son. Value yourself like you treat other members of your family because they're always looking after everybody else.
Yep.
But what about them? Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
So I always say you need to value yourself first because if you don't look after yourself, you're not giving your family the best you.
Yep.
You're not taking home the best version of yourself. Your kids will pick up on that, and then eventually they'll end up the same way. Insecure, miserable, don't want to look in the mirror, always going back to the same Slimming World for the next 8 to 10 years.
Yep. would
You could ask the question, would you let your daughter go to Slimming World for 8 years? And they'll say no. They'll say, why are you going then?
Aye.
Why the fuck you got to Slimming World then?
Aye.
Simple as that.
Yep. That's it, mate. And you're not going to have your weight on your gravestone. Here lies Chris Oven, 88 kilo.
Mine's will stay solid though.
Aye,
I want it to stay solid.
A good 88 kilo. A good 88 kilo.
That's a joke, man.
But it will say, beloved fucking
Dad
father, and that. Do you know what I mean? And I know that's deep, right? But you get the point. Nobody knows your weight. Nobody cares your weight. So stop you caring. And instead, buy that dress or whatever, a size down that you want to buy. So yeah, mate, I think we'll wrap up that unless you've got any questions.
No, I'm quite happy with that, mate. I think we covered it.
Spot on.
There.
Yep.
Yeah.
Guys, hope you enjoyed that. This is going to grow, but we need your help. We need you guys to share it, take pictures of it, get it on your stories. Tell your pals, tell a Slimming World member that are literally we were talking about there, because they deserve to know, they deserve to be educated. Life's too short to be just fucking going in circles. So yeah, thanks for watching and speak to you soon. Take care.